My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you're here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. There's this old Spanish saying, por la boca muere el pez. The literal translation probably doesn't mean anything in English, like most of these sayings. By the mouth, the fish dies. I guess we could literally translate it. But it refers to people getting into trouble by what they say, just like fish when they get caught by a worm or a hook. Maybe a similar expression in English would say when a man puts his foot in his mouth. In any case, something like this we see today in the Gospel. This time it is Herod who puts his foot in his mouth. It is Herod who dies by his mouth. Well, not him exactly. Someone else dies because of his promise. We all know the story of Herod, of how he had imprisoned John the Baptist because John was kind of telling him that he couldn't have his brother's wife as his own wife. It seems like he had taken his brother's wife and kind of, not by force. I mean, it looks like she was happy to be with Herod, maybe because of the money, who knows? But the thing is, he was now living with her as if she were his wife. And John was kind of telling him, hey, listen, you shouldn't be doing this, right? This is not right. And so Herod didn't like this and he imprisoned John, but for some reason he was spending time with him. And he would sometimes listen to him, and he kind of respected him and liked him a little bit, it seems, because John was honest and he spoke the truth and he wasn't afraid of saying things that would get him into trouble. But eventually, Herodias and the new wife, quote unquote, of Herod didn't like him, obviously, because he was kind of speaking against her plans and she wanted to be with Herod, probably. And so she wanted to get rid of him. Until one day, the gospel tells us that Herod had this great banquet, this great feast, where he invited all the important people, all the leading men of Galilee, military officers, courtiers, and his daughter came in and performed a dance that Herod really liked. We can imagine Herod was a little bit drunk, maybe he had a little bit more to drink than usual, or maybe this was just his way of speaking most of the time. But the thing is, he overpromises, right, in his enthusiasm, also a little bit to kind of be seen by everybody else there for his magnanimity, his generosity. He starts promising this girl anything. And he says, ask of me whatever you wish, and I will grant it to you. And he even goes to the point of swearing many things to her. I will grant you whatever you ask of me, even to half of my kingdom. And this is where the old Spanish saying comes in, I think, por la boca muere el pez. Because he overpromised. He, in order to brag in front of his friends, in order to seem generous and over important, he promises pretty much anything to this girl. And the girl takes it seriously and she goes to her mother, and the mother says, hey, ask him for John's head. And she goes in and she says, well, I want you to give me John the Baptist, his head, in a silver platter. Herod had some kind of conscience, looks like it, because he was not happy with this. He was saddened by this request. He realized that he had overpromised. He realized that he had spoken too much, that he had promised something he couldn't do, or he didn't want to do. He could do it. And actually, he will end up doing it. Why? Because everyone there was expecting him to be generous and to do what he had promised. And so he has to do something terrible. He promptly dispatched an executioner with orders to bring back John the Baptist's head. And he does. And he kills a holy man, a man he respected, because of his foolish promise. I mean, of course, this is a very extreme example. I guess none of us will ever be faced with a situation like this. But I think it's a great lesson for us to learn. Because we all overpromise. We all say things a little bit too rashly, comments, criticisms, promises. Many times we brag about things to impress our friends, our relatives, our colleagues. And then we end up getting caught up in lies because we embellish the stories of things that we've done, and then people remember, and then we have to keep kind of like lying and turning things here and there so that we're not caught in the lie. And then we end up saying something about someone, and that something gets told by someone else. I mean, we know how things are. People talk, we talk. And we need to learn to be humble. And we need to go to Jesus and say, Lord Jesus, help me. Lord Jesus, I don't want to die by my mouth, right? As we were saying of this Spanish saying. I want to say too much. Help me to be humble. Help me to be simple like you, Jesus. Because obviously Jesus was simple, humble, meek. And we see it in his preaching. We see it in his speaking about himself especially. He never brings himself up. Sometimes he'll talk about himself because he has to give witness of who he is, the Son of God. But it's not like bragging about his miracles, about his capacity, his power, even though he could. And maybe he would have done something respecting the truth and saying a lot of cool things about himself. But he doesn't. He's simple. He's humble. He's meek. And he tells you and me, learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart. Well, Jesus, I want to be meek. Jesus, in looking at Herod and learning from his error, his big mistake, I don't want to fall into that. I want to be meek. I want to be humble. Help me bite my tongue. Sometimes we say that, right? Bite your tongue. In the sense of just don't say whatever comes to your mind. Don't put yourself in situations that are complicated. Think about what you're going to say. Sometimes we also say, well, count to 10 before you say anything. Of course, we can't do this every single time. A lot of conversations are just simple, don't require much complication, but many times we should think exactly what we're going to say. Why are we saying this? Am I making up this story? Am I embellishing it too much? Am I lying here? Maybe I shouldn't be lying. Am I saying all the truth? Jesus, help me. I want to be humble. I want to be simple. I don't want to fall into Herod's mistake. That's probably one of the reasons why this scene is in the gospel. Jesus Christ, help me. I want to be more and more like you in this aspect as well. Give us your grace. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.